We took our little poultry on a field trip today. Yay. Since you can't really go to a classroom, I thought it'd be nice to take a look at some of these animals and understand what they look like, size, and things like that. So you guys know what chickens look like, right? So what's the standard size of chickens that you see in most grocery stores and things like that? 2.5 to 3. You'll see 4 to 5 pounders, and those tend to be stewing hens and stuff like that, or roasters, broilers. But 2.5 to 3 is the most. 3 is about the most common size. How much does chicken cost?
Pretty cheap.
Pretty cheap? Depends what you get. If you get a free-range chicken, is that cheap?
No. Nope.
Chicken can be inexpensive or not. Have you guys seen Cornish hens before? That's my little thing. That's my. What's a Cornish hen? It's just a young chicken. It's a little chicken. And so we're going to look at this on the diagram. I'm sure you guys have probably seen chickens before, but this is a Cornish hen. What is the danger of this animal? Salmonella is one of the big ones. Yeah, that's a bacterial infection that's not so good. Has anyone ever gotten sick from salmonella?
Yeah.
That will make you want to die for sure. It's really, and it can make you die too. If you are young, old, if your immunity is compromised in any way, that can kill you. But basically, the parts of the animal, you have the wings. The 3 parts of the wing. You've got the actual drumette, which is this part, the wing flat, which is the middle part, and then you've got the wing tip. Obviously, the breast meat is here. That's where a lot of the fats. You can actually see, kind of, it's like a puppet show going on here, but you can see kind of like this fat here, right along the breastbone. You guys kind of see that? You'll see a lot of fat inside the cavity. So when you open this up, remove most of this stuff. But lots of times there's a big chunk of fat hanging right here. What do you do with it? Cut it off, throw it away? Nope. What would you do if you didn't throw it away?
Chicken stock.
You're not going to put fat in stock. Hopefully, you could. Actually, that's not fair. In Chinese stock, you would. In some Chinese stocks, you would. What else can you do with this fat?
You can stuff the chicken and then use it as a...
Who said barred? What does barding mean?
It's when you truss the poultry with the fat.
Okay, so you would put the barding. Barding is putting fat on the outside. You could take some of the fat and put it, out of the cavity here and tie it on to the breast meat, because these are very lean animals and they can dry out very easily. And some of the other ones we're going to look at, you should bard. What else could you do with the fat? Ever heard of rendering fat? If you take the fat out of here and even some of the skin and put it in a saute pan with a little bit of water, cook it slowly, what you're going to see is the fat coming out of it, and you'll get a really nice, flavorful, clarified fat that you can use for sauteing and things like that. Chicken fat's pretty good, actually. Duck fat's even better. That stuff's like gold. Duck fat's also about $8 a pound. It's not cheap. So I wouldn't recommend throwing away any fat from these animals because it's valuable. Okay, you've got the backbones. The back and neck is the part you want for stock most of the time. Got the tail. Have you been taught to truss a chicken yet?
Not yet.
Some of you not yet. So trussing chickens, usually it's on its back. This is the breast, this is the back. That tail, it's a nice place to start by tying the string around the tail. When I truss chickens and I teach students to do it, I teach them to make it, they act like the chicken's going to run away. This isn't going anywhere. It's not going to run away. I know that for sure, because there's no heart. Actually, the heart might be in here, but it's not working, So the point is that you're going to tie. I'm a big believer in tying this thing together in a way that makes it easy. What makes it trussing a chicken difficult is when the parts are moving around. So what I'll do is I'll tie it to the tail, then I'll tie the legs to the tail, and then I'll tie the legs to the wings, and it's easy. So we'll show you some ways of doing that, but don't chop the tail off. Tails. I know who was saying about the tail earlier. Someone was talking. You were talking about how the turkey tails are kind of a dish in some countries, and the chicken tails are too, for sure. Okay, so that's a Cornish hen, very small, and it's actually in pretty good shape. Sometimes you see like broken legs and bruised breast meat and things like that. Chickens aren't handled very well. Has anyone ever seen a chicken farm? Pretty horrible place, yeah. Pretty disgusting place. Chickens are not particularly hospitable animals. I guess I wouldn't be either if I was a chicken. But they will bite at you and all that kind of stuff. I grew up on a farm when I was little, and guinea hens and chickens were just chasing me around all the time. That's why I like killing them. Let's see here. So you've got, this is a pheasant, which is about the size of a chicken. This is about a 2.5 to 3 pound animal. I grew up in Pennsylvania where these fly wild, but this is a farm-raised product. Comes from North Carolina. This is a squab. What's a squab? Who said it? Pigeon. Those pigeons, yeah, those guys walking around downtown. I got my eye on them. Squab is a young pigeon. It's domestically bred pigeon. Pigeon hunting's big in Europe for sure, and in the South actually too. But squab, that's what you're talking about. And you can see that this pigeon animal has it has a lot of fat on the on the breast skin. There's a lot of fat here, and it's got dark meat. It's a pretty dark meat animal. Most of these are. The pheasants like that too. Very, very dark meat. This is a partridge, little tiny partridge, very small. These are, you see these a lot in the desert actually, but partridges grow and they fly in forests and things like that. We used to hunt these when I was a kid too. This is duck meat, duck breast. You can see how almost like red meat that is. Super, super thick skin. The skin has tons of fat in it and it's very hard to make it crisp. You'd have to render it to make it crisp. And these are quail, which actually is kind of hard to see them. I don't want to open this, but see if we move this out of the way. These quails have been basically boned out from the inside, so they're pressed flat. So this is the backbone area, this is the wing, this is the wing. These usually come with little rods inside them to kind of like keep them open. So it'll be like a flat boneless quail with just it'll have the drumsticks and it'll have the wings still on them. But basically it's this little piece of metal that kind of keeps them open, so you can grill a quail flat. You can stuff them really easily too for that reason. So you can kind of see some sizes. What is this, do you think? What is it? Ostrich. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Ostrich is, and you'll see that emu is another common animal, each of which was hard to get for a while because some of the flu problems they were having with poultry. But this is red meat. Ostrich meat and emu meat is very, very red meat. Very low in fat, very low in cholesterol. Not very good cooked beyond about medium, because if you cook it beyond that, it gets very, very tough and dry. You mentioned barding. What's the other kind of companion to barding?
Larding.
Larding, and that is where you insert strips of fat on the inside, in bacon, fat back, things like that, even foie gras. But this is the kind of meat that would benefit from having some fat inserted on the inside to keep it moist and that kind of thing. But just don't overcook it. I don't put this on my menu because somebody wants it well done. Somebody is going to insist on getting this well done, and then they're going to be upset because it's like rubber, and it is. It's like a baseball when you're done cooking this. So I don't even mess around with trying to put it on. This ostrich or emu, it's a flightless bird. It's called a raytite. Any flightless bird with a flat breastbone. These have very flat breasts, unlike the chicken breastbone that kind of goes like this, or ducks. These animals don't have that. Last. You guys have seen the little chicken livers, you know, in the containers what are coming out of chicken? Well, that's a duck liver. But that is a foie gras duck liver. So what's foie gras?
Duck liver?
Right.
It's a fattened, it's an artificially fattened liver. It has to come from a Muscovy duck, or sorry, from a Moulard duck. A Moulard duck is a genetic cross between a Peking and a Muscovy duck, so which means they are genetically neutered when they're born. They have to be, the mothers have to be inseminated because they can't reproduce because they're a cross. But these, that's one liver. This one weighed. Well, let's see. This was a B grade, 1.63 pounds, just pretty small. Usually they're about a kilo. I think he got this for 36 bucks a pound. That was cheap. A grade's about 60 bucks a pound, and you're talking about a 2.2 pound liver. So a little over 120 bucks for one liver. These animals are force-fed a corn grain mixture, and there's a lot of ethical stuff that goes with that. This is made in the Hudson Valley farms. I've actually been to those farms and walked around with the ducks, which is pretty cool to see it, you know, to be among them and see how they feed them. But it'll be illegal in about 2 years. We will no longer be able to raise foie gras in this country, and that started in Sacramento actually, where that started. It makes me mad. I don't really care about foie gras, but I do care about people telling me that I can't use it. How do you feel about it? Any ethical issues you have with the animals being force-fed? Anybody?
How do
Isn't
they
it like
force
Kobe
feed
beef
the
also?
animals?
How they force feed them?
Yeah.
What they do is they have a tube. It's a long, they're extra long, so they have this tube. The tube is inserted in their throat, and then they pour every day a little bit more grain is fed to them. It's a special, scoop. It's like 30 of them, I guess, and they put the tube down the throat, pour it in, it goes right into their stomach. So, how do you feel with that?
Well, isn't Kobe beef the same thing, or the same situation?
No, they don't force feed them like that.
Well, they don't force feed them, but don't they, they're like kept in cages so they don't move?
Well, so is veal.
Veals.
Actually, these animals aren't kept that way. They're not. These are not kept in cages. They have to be allowed to move freely because their livers will not grow to this size if they're particularly stressed. And when they're, I mean, they're stressed, like they're working so hard about something. But if their livers won't grow to that size. So, what would you think would stress them out is that feeding process, because they are taking a plastic tube and jamming it down their throat. And I'm putting it that way on purpose because that's what they do. But what I'll also tell you is from watching this, they have the same. When I was there were 2 Portuguese women that worked with this particular flock. One of them always fed them. One of the 2 of those people always fed the same ducks every day. They worked 6 days a week, and when one was off, the other was on. And those ducks were like their children. And what they would do is they would sit down on this bench. It was about this high. It had the U shape in it. They were sitting here, and the ducks would walk up, and they would turn around, and they'd stick their head up through this hole, this like U-shaped hole in the bench. And the ducks would lay their heads back. I mean, no one's hanging on to these things and like pulling their head up. These ducks are standing there with their heads back, mouth wide open, and they would put the tube in their throat and feed them, and then they'd walk away. There were shepherds among the flocks, which you would think is would be there to be herding the geese or the ducks in, but it wasn't. The shepherds were there to keep them away from the feeders, because once they fed them, they would turn right around, walk back up, and lay their head back again to be fed. So I'm not so sure that they were stressed out by that. They didn't seem to be. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a duck, but I agree it doesn't sound very palatable. But the point I'm making is I don't care about foie gras. So what? I mean, if you can't use it, there's lots of other good food. You all are the future of the industry, aren't you? You're the ones that will help make decisions like this. To me, get some information before you start thinking something is a terrible thing. Don't just go to the PETA website and see the broken neck duck that's hanging out in the picture. Of course they're going to find one of those. What do you think they're going to do? Show the happy ones? The point is that if you don't agree with something, you should get a whole lot of information about it, understand it. And I wish that our state legislature had done that. Because we're still going to get foie gras. We're just going to have to buy it from France and Canada. Now we don't get our own farmers that have built these industries for 30, 40 years. Can't grow. That bums me out, That's one of those things. So anyway, that's my soapbox. I'll get off it now. But anyway, so you can see we've got a lot of these animals. Some of these you'll use in American regional, like the squab, partridge squab, pheasant, emu, especially Midwestern states. You'll use foie gras in a limited amount, art culinaire, garmager. So, and then chickens, of course, you'll use a lot. The key with this is let's be super careful with sanitation, because you can make somebody pretty sick with this stuff unless you're really, really careful. So that's that. Any questions on these things? All right, grab a seat.